Hello and welcome to People, Politics and Power on your channel of choice, Africa Independent Television, AIT. Like we will tell you, our main objective here on the program is to keep Nigeria united for the benefit of all stakeholders. My name is Okiria Agbonsu Remi. Our search for a new Nigeria will take us deeper into the system on the program today. In less than 1 week, we have had representatives of the Southeast, Southwest, and North Central region. The subject has been the battle agitation for restructuring. Perhaps the Ibadan declaration that took place recently by the Yoruba nation has made these interrogations crucial, and never a time has Nigeria faced a plethora of agitations and security threats like in the past 2 years. Certainly, there are reasons for it, and there must be a way out because Nigerians' unity and indivisibility remains sacrosanct and paramount. Today, we shall take the discussions deeper into northern Nigeria, and my guest is someone that is, some people will consider as controversial, but he will never retreat from any issue he believes in. He was the former National Secretary of the defunct Action Congress. You recall that he rejected an ambassadorial nomination from President Muhammadu Buhari in 2016, saying his hands were full. Above all, he was once quoted as saying that the crude oil we are talking about belongs to northern Nigeria. I do not believe. I do not think he has changed his mind. He will tell us if he has changed his mind or he was indeed misquoted. And I want to welcome Dr. Usman Bugaje to our program today. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you for always heeding our call each time we ask for your interview, and we want to share views with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we also want to thank you for taking all the time, traveling all the way from Kaduna to join us on this program.
Thank you
for the sacrifice. Now, we have, you have been following the debate in Nigeria. We don't want to go back to be recapping the threats and the counter threats, but you are quite familiar with all the issues. Now, I want to ask straight away, what is your take on the current position in Nigeria with regard to agitations all over the place?
Well, I think the first thing is to say that it is regrettable that after 60 years of independence, more or less, people still speak from the different parts of the country, meaning you hear Arewa speaking, the West speaking, the East speaking, the South speaking.
We will have a Midwest speaking now.
Right, fine. Nobody's speaking for Nigeria. Now, this is highly regrettable. It suggests that the country has not yet a soul. It does not have a conscience, or there are no statesmen that can actually provide the conscience for the nation. And with all the things that we have seen in Africa, look at the case of Rwanda, look at the case of Somalia before it, look at the case of the Sudan that led to actually a split. And what do we have after the split? Yeah. The point is, it is regrettable that we as Nigerians don't seem to have faith in our own country. And we are talking as different tribal groups, regional groups, different type of, parochialities, different parts of the country speaking for themselves rather than for the whole country.
Nigeria.
That I think is regrettable. It speaks to the poor leadership that we have had in the last from 1999, you can say close to 20 years, we have had the opportunity to correct all the wrongs that we had been blaming the military for. But we have not had the leadership to actually have that selflessness to run this country as it ought to be run as a nation. Even when presidents come, they come from a particular part of the country, which they have to come from one part of the country or the other.
Identity,
but they allow themselves to be perceived as presidents coming from other part, a particular part of the country, and therefore they have to do something for that part of the country. And the debate has always been to judge them in respect of either the country they come from or the other parts of the country that they don't come from.
Yeah.
And they have not been able to rally the nation around and to produce the kind of a sense of belonging that is necessary for a nation. And this is one of the major obstacles that this country is facing, that we don't have an elite consensus on anything. And you can see clearly the divergent views that are being, and the depth of parochialism. Everybody is thinking of himself, I or we, from this nation or from this part of the country, and talking down to the rest of the country. We must have this, we must have that. You don't do this anywhere in the world. Not anymore. You know, you have to negotiate. In the real world, you don't get what you deserve. You only get what you negotiate for. And the currency for that negotiation is power. Power can be economic, it can be demographic, it can be military, it can be intellectual, it can be even moral. And therefore, people leverage what they have to negotiate their position. So this sense of negotiation, in fact, is almost lost, because people are talking down. We from this part of the country or from this nation must get this, we must go back to this, we must do that. I mean, who are you going to dictate to? Not anymore. You can't do that. And in a democracy, it's sad that this kind of language, which is very military, you know, is still being
and it does
used.
appear that every part of Nigeria appear guilty of this.
That's the point I'm making. Yeah. I started by saying almost every part of the country is speaking for itself, not for the country.
Now where did some persons have traced the origin of this problem to the what they call faulty foundation of the Nigerian state? Do you agree?
This idea of faulty foundation, I think, is being stretched beyond its real limit. You see, the point is, in actual, in almost every nation of the world, you know, nations are not designed and put in some kind of, they are not neatly drawn up and designed in ways that people want. All nations go into the history from Greek antiquity to the contemporary times. Nations have always been contingent on a number of factors. Some were created by war, some by famine, some by natural disasters, people migrating, some by oppressions. Look at the United States, for example. I mean, most of the people who built the United States, you know, of America, were dissidents from other countries,
yes,
from Germany, from Ireland, from so many other places. Some were oppressed and they had to run away. And that's how they came to form that nation. So nations were never like, you know, just sit down and say, okay, let's cut this particular piece of land. It belongs to this particular nation. No, you don't do that. There is no nation like that.
There's some evolution, there's some...
It has always been a mixture, and it has always been an evolution. The point is, even if there were mistakes, even if there were, for example, in our own case, it was British imperialism that created Nigeria,
yes,
right? They did not come here for reasons of philanthropy. They came to
do business.
No, to exploit, you know,
yes,
the resources, the people, and the material resources of this country. And now that they have come and they have gone, it is for us to decide to make the best of the situation.
Is that not what people are talking about? That's what people are talking about. That when they came with a reason. They came for expansionist tendencies that were available that time. Let us look at new areas, get mineral resources, exploit the people. But by the time they were going, which is what people are talking about, that look, the foundation, they barely just got us together and left. Did we do the appropriate thing that would...
Now, let me go back a little. Before imperialism, there is a process of state formation in Africa, which has been, you know, moving, if you like, in a very natural manner over a period of time. What imperialism did was actually to interfere with this natural process. Before imperialism, there was the state of Ghana,
yes,
and there was Mali, and there was Songhai, and there were the Hausa states, there was Kano and Borno. I'm talking about this particular area of West Africa.
yes.
And there were groups of, you know, if you like, republican tribes and nations, in different parts of West Africa. But through trade, through migration, through a lot of other activities, people came together. In fact, new languages were born out of the mixing, of people. New cultures were evolved, in that process. And that is how the world has always been, from Greek times to date. Therefore, the point is to say, okay, here we are with these kind of challenges. How can we live together? How can we have peace and development?
When was it that question should have been answered?
Now, that point is not one question. It's not one particular point. You finish it. No, you keep reviewing. Yeah, you keep reviewing and improving. Even in the United States, there has been constitutional amendments. It's a federation, but that particular federation has been evolving. There are times when the amendments were to make, the state weak. I mean, the federal government weak and to make the state strong. There were times when they realized, no, that makes their own nation vulnerable because of the challenges they might have been facing. So they now concede more powers to the center, to be able to get that total or complete protection for the units. So these are dynamic, issues.
Now let's take a look at the you are familiar with the various constitutional conferences that were held. The colonial masters helping us to midwife a nation state in 1960. There were a lot of constitutional conferences, upon which we also had some development, because the 1960 constitution got an improvement in 1963 when Midwest came on. There were debates, there were referendums, there were a lot of discussion going on. You also know that, like you rightly said, there were nation states, pockets of nation states in Africa. There were the Southern Cameroon that said they don't want to belong here, they don't want to. At the end of the day, we had this country called Nigeria. Mm-hmm. Now, the question that people have asked is, which has been on ground is, did we do the appropriate thing to carve a part of continuous discussion, review, and negotiation that you talked about? What has hampered them? Because we have had more in dictatorial creation through the military than the discussions you are recommending. How do we solve the problem?
Now, on records, there are nearly a dozen type of constitutions from the beginning of colonialism to date. And in all these constitutions, they were done either under the supervision of the imperial government or supervision of the military, including the last constitution that we had. You can argue, rightly, that Nigerians have never had a constitution that they freely, without any duress, without any tampering, without any, if you like, military influence, of some sort, up to this time. Fair enough, this has been our own history. What stops us from deciding at the moment to review our constitution in ways, or even to design a new constitution in ways that will give us all the freedom to decide what we think is best for us? Nobody stops us from doing that. And we can...
Why are we not doing it?
We are not doing it perhaps because our leaders, our political leaders, have not developed that maturity to allow that process, which to me is in itself a significant indication of the maturity of the nation itself. There are fears that if you open up, something is going to happen. But this is also because...
Disintegration will happen, according to some...
This is also because the political development that we have had, especially in the last, has not actually addressed the basic issues of the country. For example, a lot of the so-called complaints about marginalization from this part, it has to do with development. There are issues of bad governance. The causes of a lot of these problems are actually bad governance. It's not so much to do with the Constitution itself. I agree there is a lot that you need to do on the Constitution to make it better. I agree that at the moment the exclusive list in the Constitution is too long, and we have no business doing a lot of things that the federal government is doing. But these are things that are negotiated in a very free environment where you bring arguments, you persuade your fellow countrymen, with logic and sound arguments.
But we have attempted to do this at conferences. The 2014 is the
Now
last one.
come.
We have attempted to come. Yeah.
Here, we know what these conferences have been. That took place under Obasanjo, and that took place they were not really national conferences. They were conferences designed by the president at that time to achieve a particular objective.
There were no free discussions.
They were not free. Look at that of Jonathan. I mean, a whole chunk. A whole chunk of people were actually excluded. It was skewed. It was not freely. That of Obasanjo was particularly for third term. We were in the National Assembly when that took place. So I don't see this as real national conferences. These are, if you like, rogue conferences designed by presidents who were out to achieve a particular thing. Every one of them, both of them, had a particular objective. And that destroys that free atmosphere for citizens to engage. And again, at the background of all these are these complaints of marginalization.
Is there any time, will you recommend that there's a time that anybody, including the current president, will call together a conference and people will not say he has an agenda like you have alleged?
I think there will be a time when you can do that.
When do we, what manner of conference, how do we hold the conference that everyone and everybody will agree that this is the conference we have been waiting for?
Well, here, this is possible. You need to engage. Now, I knew there has been calls for national conferences. Some would say sovereign national conference. Some would say, no, sovereign is too risky. We cannot afford that. All these issues for me are issues that you can put on the table and negotiate. But there has not been that. No government has given this nation that opportunity to really engage freely and come out with the kind of conference that will address the genuine feelings of people.
Now, is there an evolution going on? We have had the Southeast, we have the South-South, and more recently, we have the Southwest. Coming out with a position, clear position. Some said even the idea of a conference in Abuja, where the president set up a conference and invite everybody, is not ideal. It should be bottom up, where people of different nationalities will discuss, and after the discussion, they will all come with their own trust of ideas and what they want to this. That would be what we call the people's, resolutions that will come up at the end of the day. Is this the beginning of it? Are we beginning to see it?
It might well be, but the government needs to, whichever government, whether this one or next government, sadly cannot abdicate its responsibility. No government can allow a vacuum to exist where people do. But governments have responsibility to allow a process of engagement that will bring recommendations. And these recommendations can actually be put to vote.
Under what platform? How will the government do this? That's actually the problem, because there's suspicion.
It's
how
not,
would the government
it's not a problem.
Do you have a template?
I think if a government is properly constituted,
yes, like this one that we have,
fine,
yes,
but also is made up of people who have got the knowledge and the experience and the confidence to engage your fellow people. I have this feeling that most of the governments that we had, not just this one, even the previous ones from 1999, did not have that confidence to actually go out and engage citizens.
Does this government have that quality?
I don't think this government has that confidence. This is my own assessment.
Your take?
I don't think they have that confidence. I can see them, you can see from the way the government has been constituted. You can see that this government did not prioritize competence. They prioritized loyalty. Now that, for me, is a measure of the absence of maturity and confidence in government.
Did I hear somebody say that you were invited, but you said you were not going to work with the government?
It's not exactly true.
Okay.
I saw my name on a list,
yes,
of ambassadors, and I declined because I had what I think is more important for me, to do.
Okay.
And I, politely declined. I thanked them for,
For nominating
thinking
you.
exactly, thinking good
Now,
of me.
now, we're going to take a break, but we are going to be feeding in with some of the clips of what we have had in the recent times in this discussion. And I have my guest with me. Usman Bugaje is not somebody that is particularly new to people in Nigeria. He's a politician, a former member of the National Assembly, and a man who believes strongly in the unity of Nigeria and that we can do it if we all sit down. Let's take some clips from what we have heard in the recent, just the last few days, and then we'll come back with interrogation. We'll be talking to Dr. Bugaje on what we have for the North. Are they talking? Now we have had the Southwest, the Southeast, the South-South. Is anybody talking for the North? And is there one monolithic North that can really talk and have a position when we come back? But let's feed you in. Let's take a listen to what we have for you.
When some people say go back to 63 constitution, I never saw it as a perfect constitution. Go back to 60, but the problem mean let's go back to the fact that each region was semi-autonomous. To that extent, what many of us are saying is that the federating units of Nigeria ought to have more responsibility and more resources at its disposal than the center. So that's why we've been advocating devolution of powers. Now, part of my concern about the North is that there's a tendency to think that every innovation, every change, proposed change, is an anti-North thing. Whereas, if we get it right, it can be made a win-win situation for all regions of the country.
This constitution is a victory document. It is a constitution contrived for sharing of national asset rather than production. The constitution talks about how to share national offices. It doesn't recognize merit. It recognizes federal character. The constitution talks about quota. The constitution talks about revenue allocation. And let's come to think about it. You know, those who are opposed to this constitution think that this is a desire for those who are oil producing, mineral producing, to seize their natural wealth that are in their homes and deprive other Nigerians of it and create poverty in other parts of Nigeria. And I think this is myopic. Do you know why? Look, oil is a receding asset in the world today. All major countries in Europe and America have put a deadline of not more than 10 years from now for the non-production of machines powered by crude oil. Cars are going to drive by 2024 in America without fuel. All new cars that will be produced in America.
And even much earlier in France.
Fine. Now, therefore, whatever is this position of oil in our national revenue is going to decline very seriously in a very short while before the children who are born today attain poverty. This is the time to plan for the alternative. And I'm glad this federal government is planning for agriculture, but it's also planning the structure of the federation so that it increases production. When we had regions, you had cocoa in northern Nigeria. You had groundnuts in northern Nigeria. You had cocoa in western Nigeria. You had palm oil in eastern Nigeria. You had rubber in Benin and what have you. And there were export earnings.
One we had under President Jonathan in 2014, I was a member of that conference, unfortunately did not have legislative backing, and so people hid under that. Even though I personally believe that we could not have had a better representation of Nigerians gathered together at that conference. And I will tell you why. President Jonathan or the federal government only appointed 37 delegates to that conference. Elder statesmen from each state and the FCT. All the others were appointed or nominated by various interest groups. ICANN, NBA, the Nigerian students, the zonal, what do you call it, cultural, socio-cultural organizations, retired army officers, retired inspector generals of police, retired academicians, and so on. So it was sectoral. The representation was very broad. You had ministers of the First Republic, traditional institutions, they nominated their representatives themselves. They were not handpicked by the government. We could not have had a better representation. And we came out with 603 resolutions, which we grouped into 3 because of what we perceived as the urgency of the situation. The first group was to be implemented by executive order by the presidency. But most unfortunately, President Jonathan did not even implement that. Mere executive orders would have put that in position. Because at the conference, we interrogated all issues affecting Nigeria. We invited all ministers, all federal permanent secretaries to come and tell us the workings of their ministries. So the relevant committees of the conference interrogated them and came out with substantial revolutions to reform. So those were to be done by executive order, which President Jonathan, for reasons best to him, did not do. The second group was to be done by National Assembly alone. It did not require constitutional reforms. It was only the third group that required constitutional reforms that would have to go to state assemblies. So some of us, I had expected that President Jonathan ought to have at least implemented the ones that needed executive orders and forwarded the ones for National Assembly to National, which he did not do. So sometimes you want to give credence to those who said there was probably an ulterior motive to setting up the conference. But that is not the issue. You asked me about regionalism.
Yes,
Nigeria made better progress when we had the federating units controlling their resources. They made better progress. All the federating units, 3 until 1964, and they became 4 in 1964 with the Midwest region.
The Nigeria of our dream, the Nigeria we need, is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria, which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT. Join us to build bridges of unity.
Well, the program is People, Politics, and Power. And I still have my guest in the house, Dr. Usman Bugaje. Dr. Usman Bugaje is right here in the studio with me to continue to interrogate some of the issues raised. Of course, there's a general consensus that we have a lot of documents, a lot of conferences we have heard. We have a lot of bank of information that we can draw from, and that some of the conferences that we are holding are repetitive and that we already know exactly what the problems are. So, my guests also have agreed with me just now, it's like there's a beginning of an evolution that is coming on from across the region. And the last, or the latest, was the Yoruba nation that spoke recently and said we should go back to the 1960-1963 arrangement where the federating units had the power base and had representatives in the nation's capital. Thank you very much for remaining with me on the program.
It's my pleasure.
Is there a discussion going on now that there are discussions and talks? Is there any discussion going on in the North? And before you answer that question, sir, is there one North presently? Because people say there's no one monolithic North anymore. That the North that Tafawa Balewa and Alhaji Ahmadu Bello superintended over is not exactly the same North. Is that correct?
The North is still the North, as far as I know. But the North has always been what it is. Meaning, it's not one language, one, if you like, tribe or one culture. It has always been heterogeneous, a group of people. But also, because they have a common history in 35 onwards, might be thinking quite differently because they have been a product of a different type of, if you like, information, culture. They are perhaps more informed about the globe, and they are more influenced about, by events that are happening than perhaps the older generation. The point I'm making is that the North has never been one particular language or tribe or particular, but that feeling of the North has always been there and is together, and we can see it.
And it's still there?
Yeah, it's still there. It's still there. In spite of whatever opinions that might be there in different parts of the North, but the North is still the North. Just like other parts of the country are looking at these issues of the future of the Nigerian Federation, the North is also looking at that. Okay. But every part of the country has its own methods. The North will not go to a stadium and make a declaration.
Yeah.
That's not our way of doing things. The North will consult, and there has been a lot of consultation going on quietly in the last few months.
Okay.
And the North has now come together to hold a conference next month.
In October.
In Kaduna, exactly, in October. And this conference is going to bring in almost every platform of the North, including the governors, including the traditional rulers, the Arewa Consultative Forum, the Northern Elders Forum, the
Middle Belt.
Every component of the North is going to come together. And they are going to look at the issues from the academic point of view, because there is a lot of absence of clarity, precision, and accuracy in the debates that we are holding in this country. We find so many things jumbled up. For example, the common reference to true federalism suggests that whoever is talking about true federalism doesn't understand what federalism is about. Because there is no true federalism. Just like there is no true Nigeria. There is Nigeria, right? There are no two federations that are exactly the same. Every federalism or every federation emerged under particular circumstances.
So you cannot take the rule of the thumb to say this is what all federal structures will be like.
There is something common about federal structures, and this is the fact that you have diversities, but then working in a unity. This is the whole essence of federalism. But now, how much power is devolved to the federating units? It depends on the needs of the moment, depends on the negotiations, depends on so many other factors. And that itself is constantly changing.
From the discussions that have been going on, that is going to take us to...
If I may just finish on this conference is now going to be made up of academics that will really show exactly and bring the records from 1914 to date, even the constitutional developments, examine all the constitutions that we have had, all this period, to the latest one, 1999, including the amendments that have taken place since then.
Is this with a view to countering what has happened?
No.
Or to come up with a...
The North itself needs to create a consensus within itself, because that is important. And that consensus cannot come just out of opinions. It has to come out of knowledge. I know not many people are able to differentiate the difference between knowledge and opinion, because our level of education has gone so low that anybody can just say anything without bringing evidence, and then it becomes, not many people are able to differentiate. So we want to start from the point of knowledge. What are the facts? What is the knowledge of these things? And of course, politicians, civil society, everybody in the North will now have time to also, in a panel, express their own views. So we're not going to just limit ourselves to the academics, but we have to start there, because that is what is important, because you can't be talking on just opinion. You have to put the knowledge there. After that clarification, after that records have been put, then people will now put their own views, their ideas, their insights, their perspective, their feelings, their own complaints, whatever. By the time we finish that, our idea is that the northern governors and northern traditional rulers have already created a committee, and which is headed by the governor of Sokoto, and the secretariat is manned by the deputy governor of Plateau, Professor Toeden, and these will now take the issues of the conference, take the ideas of the conference, And in all probability, they will also bring in other stakeholders identified within the conference. You know, the different northern platforms,
Yes.
the different civil society organizations across the north. No part of the north is going to be left
Now,
out.
are you
Now,
not
when they
going-
come together,
Yes.
they will now sit, you know, and then look at examine all the issues and the report of the conference.
Are you not
and
going
come
to
up
be
with something.
trading? Are you not going to be trading, like you said, even with the academic, you will go into some. Are you not going to be trading academically on things that need some practical demonstration? And I have also heard that, or say the body language of the people. I mean, those who have preponderance of those who have spoken for the North. The body language shows that they don't want this kind of restructuring as defined by.
Not at all. In fact, I don't know how you come about that conclusion. As far as I know, in North, more than any part of the country, it's more interested in restructuring.
They are interested.
Oh, they are more interested. It's just that in our nature, we don't make noise over issues. We study them.
What manner of restructuring is it not prepared for?
Now, the word restructuring itself
Yes.
is a very bad word because it means nothing. Really. It means nothing.
Reorganization?
Now,
Rearrangement?
you are talking of a federation.
Yes.
And the theme of the conference, by the way, is the North in the Nigerian Federation. So we are going to examine the federation. What are the shortcomings from our own experiences?
What is their own take on? What do you think their take on from what the consultation that are going on, from what you can say? What is their own definition of? Let us even use the word restructuring, as bad as it is. What is their own take on what the future of Nigeria should be that will be on the table for this?
Now, I would not want to preempt the conference.
I'm just talking about what you can.
But from all that has been said, and that is not the final, the North will be more than ready to have the devolution of powers that will make the states much stronger and much more responsible for development, and allow the center to deal with those big issues that will keep us together.
When you talk of devolution of power, does it also include devolution of the economic powers? I mean, the resource control, does that include it?
Now
That Zamfara, for instance.
That is an issue. That
yes.
is an issue on the table which the North has to react to. And you can see in Wodo, in the clip that you show,
yes.
Addressing that issue. And he is making the valid point that some of the problems of the debate that we have is that it has no appreciation of the future. We are speaking in the past, actually, when the world itself has gone ahead. We are stuck with oil. Oil, like he said, is a receding asset. It's an asset, the value of which will soon disappear. In fact, you can put a time to it. When oil will, of course, it will be there. It can be used in plastics and some other things, but not the big kind of thing that it is made to be at the moment. So a sensible nation should start planning for the future. And there is, absence of appreciation of the future in our debate. Everybody is stuck. And, sometimes, when we talk about the North, we must also remember that the North represents nearly 80% of the landmass of this country. So you're not talking about a periphery or some kind of small part of the country, because it's 78.5, landmass of the country. I mean, the last town in Ida, in Kogi, is on the same latitude with Abeokuta. That's how far the North has gone. So I mean, the issues on the table, like issues of resource control, the North will have to address it.
What will it? Because recently, some persons have been saying, unless we allow the North to, I will even say, Professor Ango Abdullahi did say that we should not close our eyes to the fact that there's a lot of disparity between the level of development in the North and the development in the South. And if we are beginning to talk of resource control and all the other things we are talking about, we should also create a template for the North to catch up. Is that a problem?
But see, the problem of development is not the problem of restructuring. It's a problem of good governance. Look at the states that have been getting a lot of large amount of money, derivation. They're not any more developed, compared to that. So let's not mix up issues. And this is why it's important to have an academic aspect of it. But that academic aspect is only going to prepare for the practical discussions. We're not going to be stuck with only the theoretical issues. We are going to have to delve and dirty our hands in the practical. And a lot of these issues...
How many days are you going to be talking?
2 days, but they are going to be 2 full days, you know, from morning until sunset. And
probably some paperwork, some summaries from the past things must have been done to enable...
There are a lot that are going to go into the conference. There are publications. There is a special newsletter of the Ariwa Research and Development Project, which is anchoring the whole conference.
Yeah.
That's going to bring in some of these records of the past and put some of the issues, you know, that needs to be discussed. That will like be a kind of background reading, but there will be papers. Some of these papers are already ready, actually.
Would you think that at the end of that conference, the North would have come up with a suggestion of the way out of this turbulence where we appear to be in?
Now, for us, the process of the conference is the key and most important step, but it's not the end. The conference will take all the views after we have clarified and brought out the knowledge and the records. It will take all the views, and now these views will now go through a process of discussion, negotiation, reflection, interrogation, before eventually a position is reached.
How long do you think this position will be reached?
It's a matter of weeks. It's not going to take
in another
whole year.
In another conference?
No. It doesn't need another conference. There is already a committee.
Yeah, okay.
I've told
The committee
you.
will come up.
This committee will just enrich itself, you know, with other groups, and they will discuss. And no interest in the North will be left out. Everybody is going to be, you know, represented, and it is that which is going to give that. That kind of position that everybody in the North will be able to identify.
Now, before we go to the conference, I want to have your own personal view on going back to the 1963 Constitution, going back to the days when Alhaji Tafawa Balewa was asked to go to Lagos by Alhaji Ahmadu Bello, the Sultan of Sokoto, to say, look, I want to remain here, you go. Where, I want to say now, the center is not as attractive as...
Now, let me tell you, straight away,
will you personally...
My view is that I'm a historian, right? So I know how important history is, and you have to start from history. But history should actually propel you to learn the lessons of the past to apply them for the future.
Yes.
That discussion itself of going back to 60 or 63 or to me is retrogressive.
It's retrogressive.
Yeah, because you are going back. You should be looking into the future. You should be looking at your peers. Look at what Malaysia has done. To have now developed, I mean, they took palm oil from here, and they are the largest, you know, producers of palm oil at the moment. Look at what Rwanda has done. They went through genocide of the kind that we have never seen in Africa or even in the world, but within 20 years,
they have moved out.
They have so reinvented their country that they are one of the fastest growing economy in Africa. They are this, you know, in fact, Kigali is the safest city in Africa. They have, you know, made production 5 times, you know, agricultural production. Their coffee is now, they are supplying Starbucks, you know, in the United States. So they have done so much. I would rather look into the future. Yes, I need the past to learn from the lessons of the past. But I need to look into the future. Where are my peers? Where do I want to be?
Can we?
Just
are you not recommending?
Nigeria needs to be, you know, in the next 10, 20 years, in terms of economy, in terms of so many other things. This is where we want to be. That's the kind of thing. Now we should now look at a constitution that will allow us to get there. I don't want to start going back, you know, to 60 or 63 or whatever. If we've, of course, from the lessons of the past, we find that that particular constitution is most amenable to this kind of development that we are targeting, fine, let it be. But the point is, I would not want to peg our position based on the past. I would rather look at the future and see what kind of constitution I need.
Are you not inadvertently recommending a journey that needs speed on the absence of a vehicle? We need to have a vehicle.
The vehicle is there.
The vehicle is
The vehicle is the Nigerian.
The vehicle is structured that
The vehicle is the
Nigeria does not operate in a vacuum. It operates in a structure. And some persons have said this structure that we have now currently will not take us anywhere. And there are a lot of people who say if we go back.
But here we are going round and round. The
Yes.
point has already been, I think, agreed that there is need for changes in the current constitution.
Okay.
But more than that, there is also need in the improvement of the quality of governance. Because the quality of governance that we have is what is precisely making us stuck
Because no matter
with
how
this
much,
constitution.
no matter what the structure you
Precisely.
have, you
Precisely.
want to have government.
And I've made this point and I want to make it again. The current political culture does not produce the kind of leadership that you need to produce development in this country.
How do we get there?
Now, you have to go into the political parties and change the leadership recruitment
Process.
mechanism. Because look at what happened in Anambra, the APC primaries.
Yes.
It's all over. It's basically cash and carry. And if APC, I mean, as a ruling party, will allow such a thing to happen, that itself is a tragedy. Because where is the change? If you are going to be producing people who are just there because of their money, people who, for many, you have not gone to court to prove it, but many people suspect that they are crooks. Now, how can you allow this thing to happen? And this is why leadership is critical. It's not the constitution that you produce. It's not the restructuring that you produce. You have to look at the kind of leaders that will give you that mileage that you need. Leaders that are aware of the world, that can really make your country
Nigeria has a challenge here.
Competitive.
Nigeria has a challenge
Now,
here.
the only way you produce leaders now
Yeah.
are through the political parties. And what the political parties are on at the moment, they are based on a mercantile culture of money, money and money and money. When are we going to get people with the competence, with the knowledge, with the education that you require in this 21st century?
Now,
in the
the
21st century, knowledge is the greatest capital. It's
Now,
not oil.
just
It's
before
not,
we
it's
go,
not anything.
Just before we go, I'll ask you this. We have a lot of talks going on. The North is meeting in October. Do we have a date?
Yeah,
Yes.
we have a date. We are still consulting, but it's likely to be the second week.
Second week in October. There will be a major meeting in Kaduna by all the interest groups in the North.
Yeah.
Now, we have had the Yorubas talk. We have the Southeast talk, South, Midwest, they are talking. Where do we take all these talks to? Some persons have said that unless we have a government that believes in what everybody is talking about, all these talks will go to naught. Do you believe that the President Muhammadu Buhari, that you know, will have the appetite and the political will to deal with whatever suggestions that are coming at them because he has the onus?
Let me start with a disclaimer. I don't claim to know the president well enough to make any statement on him. Yeah. I wish him well, but look, for me, it is the citizens that will determine what's going to happen, not the president. So if the North comes with whatever position eventually, the North can freely walk over to the West, the East, the South, and say, hey, come.
Look at what we have on the
our
table.
position. Yeah. By the time they work at their own thing, they will now tell the government this is what we want. And if the whole country rallies around that, what government is there that will stop us from getting, as citizens, what we want? Right? Even if you can only do that, for the next, before the next election. Those who are going to come will come on the promise that they are going to deal with the demands that people want. So I don't see government as a problem.
So the government is not actually a challenge to...
No. Like it, they may like it, they may not like it, but if we as citizens are ready to move in that particular direction, that's where the government will go.
Do you see...
It's either they come with us or they simply quit.
Do you see all the various regions coming together the way you have smoothly talked about it? The Yorubas, the Hausa,
you see the problem
do you see the consensus flowing smoothly?
I see it coming. And I don't see any problem in this. Because, there are a lot of childish ideas in some of the things that make the hype, in the media. And I think, reasonable and elderly and more mature people, and every society has got those groups. When they step forward, all these other people with childish ideas will step behind them, will line up. And when they come to discuss, we're going to discuss the future of this country, not its past.
So you are actually
the past is
envisaging,
useful
you are
in
envisaging,
directing us.
you are envisaging a national dialogue propelled by the people themselves.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. That's how it has to be. And in all societies that have produced change, this is how it has been.
All right.
It's not, government will be given more or less a fait accompli.
All right. Dr. Usman Bugaje, a politician, I will call him someone who believes in, who pronounces or who says what he believes in. And he has revealed here that a conference is in the works in the north, precisely around the 2nd of October in Kaduna, and that second week of October, and that we are going to be having everybody, all the interest groups in the north come together, and they will come up academic and practical solutions on how we can really move out of this. This is like our continuation, the continuation of our dialogue on people, politics, and power on Africa Independent Television, where we put Nigeria first and promote the need for national unity and the need for Nigeria to be run effectively to promote equity, good governance, and where justice and fairness reigns supreme. I want to thank you for joining us on the program. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for
joining us on
hearing.
the program.
Thank you.
And in another 24 hours, we'll be back on the program. When we do, we have another guest, and we'll still be interrogating all the issues. My name is Okiri Agbonsuremi. Many thanks for staying with us.